we are live. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Helen Vello, the director of Welcome Home Toronto, to a body, mind, spirit connection. And Welcome Home promotes mindfulness, oneness, community through meditation classes, workshops, and special events such as this, our Conscious Cafe tonight, which supports you in learning how to grow consciously in the direction of the life you desire. And tonight, I have a very special guest. I'm very excited, John Livesay, AKA the Pitch Whisperer. John is a sales keynote speaker and shares lessons learned from his award-winning sales career at Condé Nast. In his keynote talk, Better Selling Through Storytelling, he shows companies, sales teams how to become irresistible so they are magnetic to their clients. His TED Talk, which we will talk a little bit about tonight, Be the Lifeguard of Your Own Life, has had over 1 million views. His best-selling book and online course is Better Selling Through Storytelling, and I will put up the link to John's website after the broadcast. He is also the host of the Successful Pitch podcast, which is one of the podcasts I listen to the most. It's heard in over 60 countries. And John is also being interviewed by Larry King and appeared on TV as an expert on how to ask for what you want and get a yes. John has recently moved to Austin with Pepe, his King Charles Spaniel, who welcomes him home after he returns from being a keynote speaker, reminding him of the importance of belly rubs and probably giving a whole lot of love as well. So thank you, John, for being on with me. I'm so grateful to have you with us.
It's nice to be with you, Helen. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. And I last time I saw you was when I was in Los Angeles at the Global Truth Center. You did give a talk in my ministerial class, which I absolutely loved because it was so authentic and real about the power of storytelling, about the power of being authentic. And you have continued that through. And I have to say, I really do love your podcasts and the stories, the kinds of people you bring into your podcasts and what they are doing in their life. So again, wonderful to have you. I did go back and watch your TED Talk this afternoon. What I found striking was how relevant the points that you made in your TED Talk, which was 2 years ago?
Yes.
Is so relevant for what's going on today.
We are embracing disruption in a whole new level now. And, if you keep resisting it, you just get to the point where you finally get the message of, I've got to figure this out, because I can either embrace it and figure out what's going on and how I'm going to adapt, or you're just going to really be unhappy a lot. You'll be reacting to everything all the time, as opposed to, embracing disruption. And I think, Helen, for me, the key is that as many things as might be changing on the outside, there's one thing that doesn't change. And that, as you know, is our identity. And when we forget that, and we think our identity is based on our outside results, or what state we're living in, or what political party we are, or what protests we're choosing to go to or not go to, and and how does that affect who I am and my beliefs, and if statues are coming down, does that affect my identity, and all of the things that people think of as normal, which is, I'm someone that always goes to Starbucks at this particular time and gets my coffee. And when I can't do that anymore, do I lose my identity? It's really all up to us whether if our patterns and our routines are taken away from us, if we choose to feel lost, or we remember that we're bigger than any one thing happening in the world or to ourselves at any one time. And that doesn't stay the same whether we're at home or out in the world.
Well, it's true. And I think you have an incredible advantage. I mean, not only have you worked at Condé Nast and been one of the top salespeople, and you experienced disruption there. But you have studied. You've studied with Dr. James Mellon. You've studied at Global Truth Center. You understand the principles of coming home to yourself first,
Yes.
and really getting to know who that is truly, not just based on the outside world.
And if we don't have that foundation, then we're like a house that can't withstand an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And on some level, we've all experienced a form of an earthquake. And we get scared. It's unknown. We don't know how long it's going to last. The ground, things that we took for granted, like the ground being stable, is not the experience. And I think that's really the time to go within and connect even on a deeper level with other people and remind each other of the truth of who we are. And that's the value of people like you, people like Sean Scanlon, who's a practitioner. And, you know, what a gift you all are to the world.
And you.
Thanks.
And you, because you are also doing it. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to tell a little bit about your story, just about what happened at Condé Nast way back then and how you pivoted, because you handled your situation very differently from other people, and how that actually worked out for you in your favor.
Yes. Well, back in 2008, which almost sounds like the dark ages now, the economy was in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Just making things for luxury advertising, which is what I was selling at the time, was suddenly not cool. People were like, what? You shouldn't be spending money on things like that. And after a 15-year career, I got that phone call from the publisher saying, you know, I'm sorry, you know, we're laying off everyone in the outside offices and 30% of the New York staff. And we'd like you to be out in 24 hours. And I thought, I don't know if I can even do that. I've got so much stuff, plants, artwork. So I had to get some people to help me. And I said, okay, well, don't you want some kind of status report? So you know where the ads should be running and what page and all. Well, that'd be amazing. But everyone else is so angry. They're just storming out. And I thought, I've known these people too long to do that to them. I watched them get married, have kids. And Helen, little did I know that that one decision to not storm out would affect me 2 years later. And I won't lie. I mean, I closed that door like the Mary Tyler Moore at the end of the series, you know, and you're turning off the lights and you're looking and you're like, okay, what am I feeling? Sad, angry, and scared of what the future is going to be. I don't know what that's going to look like. And things as I had known them are not going to be the same. And then I realized, you know, I have to really walk my talk here. If I'm telling people that who we are is bigger than our job, and just because I've lost my job doesn't mean I've lost my identity. And that helped me a lot, stay centered and calm and go, all right, well, I'm going to go find another job. And someone said, oh gosh, it's October already. Just take the rest of the year off. And I thought, that doesn't feel good. That's not what I need to do. So I started looking, and James actually said to me, Dr. James Mellon, you know, this reminds me of what happened to the silent movie stars. Some of them made it to talkies and some didn't. So your choice is, are you going to be one of the print salespeople that makes it to digital or not? And that really helped me realize, again, I'm a choice. I can learn this technology and figure out a way to get the job. And, you know, that wasn't easy either. You know, they're like, oh, you know, we've got people from Yahoo that's got a lot more experience than you are, and they're willing to work for a lot less than you were making. I don't know that this is going to work. And then I found out about an opening at the Daily Beast, which was edited at the time by Tina Brown, who had been at Vanity Fair and edited The New Yorker and Vanity Fair. And did you ever see the movie Kramer versus Kramer?
Oh, yes.
There's a scene in there when Dustin Hoffman, working in advertising, has to get a job in order to get part custody of his child.
Right.
And so he goes to this ad agency, and it's a Christmas party, and, you know, like, and taking a job for much less than he'd been making just to have a job, right? And so when I was talking to the people at the Daily Beast, I said, hey, I'm coming to New York for the holidays. Why don't I just stop in and you can meet me? Because I knew on paper I wasn't qualified for the job. I had to sell myself in person. And they said, well, if you're going to be here anyway. And literally, I got to see them the day after their Christmas party. Some of the, party stuff was still in the lobby and people were kind of hungover. And, but I invested in myself. I paid for my own ticket, used miles, and at a time when money wasn't coming in. And I thought, I'm going to think of myself like a stock. I can put money in stocks. I'm sure the good people at Apple and Microsoft and Amazon are working hard, but I know I work hard. I know my work ethic. And so I'm going to put money in that. And after several interviews, I got the job. It was for much less money, and I hated it. It was so hard, and I didn't have the support I was used to. And someone said, you got to think of this as a paid internship. Again, I shifted my framework. Instead of resenting this, I'm like, I'm being paid to learn how to sell digital.
Brilliant.
And then 2 years later, after I got some traction in advertising, Condé Nast called me back to go back for my old job. And the irony was, I had a lot of friends that said, I'm not taking a pay cut. I'm not doing digital. And, the iPad came out and there was so much new things. And if you weren't staying current, your skills are suddenly not relevant anymore. And had I not taken this job at the Daily Beast, I wouldn't have been qualified to get my old job back because you needed digital experience. So I thought, well, if I'm coming back, I'm not coming back with any fear, because I had a lot of fear of being laid off, fear of the magazine going out of business, fear of not making my numbers and my quotas, all kinds of stuff. And I thought, I've already experienced the loss of the job. So I'm not going to come back with any of those fears again. And man, when you have that mindset, Helen, all kinds of creativity can come in because it's not taking up space in your head and your brain and your energy. And so one of the ideas I had proposed to Guess Jeans was to do a joint event with them. So it's their 30th anniversary and our 40th, and I combined the two, and it was a big success, and I ended up winning Salesperson of the Year for the whole company, not just my title. And there's that moment when you stand there getting all the applause and holding the award, like, I'm still the same person, whether I got laid off or now I'm here winning this best. So it was a very surreal moment, and sort of that, oh wow, okay, I cannot keep going on this self-esteem roller coaster. I'm only feeling good if things are going great and bad if things are going bad. Because, and especially now, I think we would, if you check the news hourly, you'll be going up and down that self-esteem roller coaster all the time. So that's the long answer to your question there, but I thought it was detailed enough that hopefully kept you interested.
It did. And I like what you said, the self-esteem roller coaster. That's brilliant, because that's what's, for me, with a lot of people that I'm coaching or working with, they are on that self-esteem roller coaster, and it is based so much on what is happening in the outside world. And we touched a little bit on this, because in your TED Talk, you talked about the 3 fears. And one of them is this fear of the unknown. And I was saying that I think the new normal is the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
It is, we are going into a place where nobody knows anything, really. Like, anything could happen. And how are we going to have the resiliency to handle that, to pivot, to learn a new skill, to be able to still stay true to ourselves and really know that ultimately at the end of it, we are supported by this benevolent universe that if we do our work, our internal work, and we are able to respond appropriately, then we will be more creative. We'll be more innovative. We will tap into that, frontal neocortex part of the brain where we can innovate in the moment, what needs to happen, and then not hang on to it. Let it go. because then something else is going to show up, and there's going to be something else. And I think we've been living a life where we've become so um, attached to life being a certain way, and it's just those rules don't apply anymore.
Well, a couple of things you said there. This fear of the unknown. My solution to that is to don't go it alone. I
Hmm.
like it because it rhymes. And I think so many times we feel like we have to figure everything out by ourselves. And, when I started my podcast, there were so many things I didn't know about it. What mic, how to interview people, who to have as a guest, what questions to ask, and certainly how to produce it. It seemed overwhelming. But I found a company that's what they do for me is I put it in a Dropbox and they take care of the rest. And I had another friend 5 years ago say, I'm not paying anybody to do that. I figure it out myself. And she has yet to launch.
Right.
So that concept of the fear of the unknown is really don't go it alone. And that's when you start connecting with your friends and your practitioners and people like you that, can remind us of that it's unknown, but we still know who we are. And then the resilience, I have a great resilience story for you, which is when the person who spoke before me at the TEDx talk was Bonnie St. John, and she lost the lower half of her left leg when she was 11, and she went on to do downhill skiing at the Paralympics with prosthetic leg. And she said that they were determining the medals by whoever it was a combination of two different mountains. So your combined time would be the deciding factor. And the first mountain, she was first place, fastest. Second mountain was icy and everybody was falling. And sure enough, she fell. And then she got back up and went down and they go, oh, you came in second. While you were the fastest going down, you were not the fastest getting back up.
Oh,
So resiliency is how, and I've done more research on this, and real estate agents, the top 1%, they get up fast. Those other people that are struggling to make their numbers, they say they let go of it when they get a no, but 2 weeks later, they're still complaining about that person that said no or that deal that fell through, and they did not get up fast mentally. So I want to invite everyone watching, listening, to really take a look at how fast do I get back up when I get the news of something that is not what I wanted to hear.
that's brilliant. I love it. And it really is, it's funny because in a class last night we were talking about uh, renewing emotions versus depleting emotions, and the emotions that really pull us down, and sometimes we can collapse into them and really take them on. And I said, it's not that we're never going to feel that, it's how long are you going to stay there, or are you going to move away from that into something else, and really use gratitude as a bridge to do that.
Yes, and
Find
yeah,
something to be grateful for.
and I also say it's so important how we start our mornings. If these people that sleep with their phone on their pillow practically, and they're checking the news and they're checking their emails and they're not doing any kind of spiritual practice to set their tone, then your brain is in fight or flight response all the time, and you wonder why you're so tired and you don't have any tolerance for grace for yourself or anybody else. And so I think that's the other big part of it is um, having some kind of spiritual practice, some kind of spiritual discipline. Are you making your bed during the quarantine? Just because no one's coming over.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just little things like that that
It
tell
is.
us I'm still on track here,
Mhm.
right? You know, um, so I think all of those things are a great test of our willingness to say, okay, what's here to learn? What's, all this time by myself or not moving around, being so frenetic, well, I can be grateful I'm not stuck in traffic like I used to be. I can be grateful I'm not spending as much money on gasoline as I used to, or whatever it is. Um, the next time you do get on a plane and it's delayed, you go, well, at least I'm grateful to be traveling, when we get back to that. So it's funny. We're always a choice. Like if you're climbing Mount Everest and you're halfway up, you have a choice. You look down and go, look how much progress we made, or oh, look how much further we have to go. So for me, it just continually comes back to, am I in the moment? Otherwise, if I'm in this as soon as game, well, as soon as the quarantine's over, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be prosperous again, and then I'll have a purpose again, and then I'll be okay. Then things will be okay. Or, oh man, I'm so mad at what somebody said or did to me a minute ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago. So the only place there's any peace of mind is now, and accepting what is now. And so like, this is what is now. I'm connecting with my friends on Zoom. Do I wish I could see them in person? Yes. Do I want to get upset and every day be mad about that? Not so much.
Oh my gosh, that'd just be such an energy drain to sit in that resentment. I mean, the stress and the just the angst of being in resentment is enough to move me out of it for sure, because it's just not a fun place to be, and it really doesn't allow us. Oh, we have someone who's come in, and could I ask you to? I'm going to mute you. There we go. Thank you. Um, to it's just not a fun place to be at all, and we really are meant to be living in a whole lot more joy and flow than what we allow for ourselves at most of the time. And I think one of the things that's so interesting about you, John, is after all that success at Condé Nast, you pivoted again. You took another leap of faith and started your own business.
Yes. And that's, not a linear path. It's, there are moments when you think, am I cut out for this? And it's completely new. This is not how I've made money for X number of years. And will I create something of value that people are willing to pay for? Talk about being in the flow of abundance and on some level acceptance. And I can tell you this concept of just create something that you believe in and don't try to figure out how it's going to come back to you. So there's certain steps in marketing yourself, marketing any business, Google search words, people search and things. And recently, a high-tech healthcare company, their executive marketing person had listened to Simon Sinek's TED talk on the why instead of the how or what. And he said, oh, everything we're saying, everything in our marketing materials is all about the what and the how. Find us a speaker, because we can't afford Simon, who come in and talk about storytelling and the why of what we're doing and get that into our culture. And so they Googled storytelling and selling, and my name and book and website and speaking information came up. And so I was up for that job of being their speaker. So if we pause on that story for a minute, when I started writing the book and all the different titles and options of what to call it, and ended up calling it Better Selling Through Storytelling, I wasn't sitting back going, 2 years from now, someone's going to go into Google and search for those exact words and find me and hire me. I'm not that prophetic. And yet I'm thrilled that I created something that by the time it was out, people were actually searching for it, as opposed to me having to start from ground one of, I think there's a problem here, and I think it's because people aren't telling stories. They were already, we need a storyteller. We need storytelling, So then it became but it's much further, and we found you because of your book and your speaking videos and all that stuff. So how people come to you and how you're in the flow of things, I don't necessarily think it's our job to figure out how that's all going to happen. If we come from a place of, I'm creating something of value, I trust myself. I trust that I'm being supported, and the universe can support and take care of that. I remember talking to Judith Light after she won her second Tony in a row. And I said, Judith, what does that feel like? She's like, well, I'm calling it divine choreography, because I could never have sat down and planned that career path either. So I think it's a nice invitation for all of us to just say, I'm going to believe and count on some divine choreography to guide my career, my personal life, all of it, in a way that I don't have to grab onto the wheel quite so white knuckling every moment.
You know, that's such a great thing to remember. And I thank you for that because, as you know, I pivoted into Welcome Home beginning of February. And it was really interesting because we had just, about the, I guess the first or second week of March, it was such a dramatic change. You know, we changed spaces. There was a whole new energy. We had so many people contacting us, wanting to collaborate. Just really interesting things coming in. That's how the Consciousness Cafe was born, by let's once a month bring in really interesting people. We were having food and wine and music, and then the speaker, and people loved it. It was this sense of community. It was a space for learning and growth, but a place to really connect. And then all of our classes were starting to really take off. And then, of course, everything changed. Everything changed within a week.
Mm-hmm.
It was all, we moved everything online. So now it's, even for me, having the faith that even what we're continuing to offer online, just putting it out there, that because it's what I love and it's what I'm passionate about, it's all fine. It's all great. You know, it's all unfolding. And yes, it's in a different way, but it's still okay.
Well, when I gave, it was supposed to be a live talk to 200 salespeople in a ballroom in Vegas, and turned into a virtual talk, and 200 people are on mute, the energy is very different. You know, you don't have any energy coming at you from an audience. There's no laughter. There's no facial reactions that you can look and pull in while you're, you know, connecting with the audience. And I had done a little test of this with a different client for like 20 minutes with just 20 people, to make sure that the lighting was good and the camera was good and the sound was good, and all the little nuances of being on Zoom versus in person. And after the 20 minutes, which felt like forever with no feedback, and then people, you know, started posting in the chat and took themselves off mute, they loved it. I went, what if people are hungrier for this information and this connection and this motivation and this inspiration and this new tool more now than ever because of the quarantine? And so instead of thinking, oh, I don't know if this is going to land or not, I go, oh, now it's even more, almost like my talk about just embracing disruption is even more relevant than it was when I gave it originally. So that was such a nice feeling for me to then go into the 200 version for an hour and a half talk with all kinds of interaction going on, breakout rooms, polling, movie clips, calling on people I'd trained to speak, so that the whole experience was very customized and collaborative, so that every 10 minutes there was something new on a Zoom call that you necessarily don't have to do when you're in person to hold their attention. And ironically, one of the things they asked me to do was to train their sales team on how to be good on Zoom. So there's a whole new need, because they're not used to selling on camera. They're used to selling in person. So there's always something to find out. Oh, there's another opportunity here.
Well, and to not give up, right? Because um, there is, I mean, I think of myself from when I started doing services and our Sunday celebration of love on Zoom, and I've moved over to a different streaming platform now. But all of those were learning curves, and there's technique to that. And sometimes it didn't go off so well, or the sound wasn't so great. And then I went back into the center, and that was a really interesting dynamic because people didn't want to be too close to each other, just, you know, the tech people. So it got very stressful. So then I said, okay, well, then I need to pivot and do something different and to keep going instead of giving up, because it's okay. It's okay if it's not perfect. And you talk about that in your TED Talk.
I do. This concept of perfectionism is such a myth, really, that anything can ever really, quote, be perfect. And certainly it is also what I found a horrible outcome is it isolates us. Because if you don't let down your guard and show some vulnerability and let people know when you've stumbled and try to come across as perfect all the time, they can't relate to you. And they don't feel like you could understand them. There's no empathy going on of, oh, you've been in my shoes. You understand what this feels like to have doubt or fear or whatever the issue is. So I always really work hard when I ask people to let go of something, is that I'm really big on, if you're going to let go of fear, replace it with love, right? You can't just say, let go of this with nothing else to come in. So around perfectionism, I say, let go of idolizing and striving for perfectionists, or even identifying ourselves as perfectionists, and call ourselves progressionists, people who celebrate progress. So whether you're trying to learn a new skill like cooking, or try to lose weight, or climbing Mount Everest, you're halfway up, let's celebrate the progress. Within management teams, I'm really big on encouraging them to open up every meeting once a week with celebrating progress and acknowledging things, as opposed to jumping into what's not working right away. And that's part of the whole process of controlling your mornings as well. What can I celebrate? What progress did I make?
Mm-hmm.
A progressionist, that's what I do. Yeah. And then it's so fun, because then you start looking for it in other people. You say, hey, that's a lot of progress you've made. Have you acknowledged that? And then like, oh, if you're not consciously looking for it, it goes unnoticed. And our brain craves it. That's why the Fitbit and the video games and congratulations, you've made it to a new level. It's addictive. Our brain craves progress. So why not lean into that DNA, the way we're wired, and say, because when you are a progressionist instead of a perfectionist, you're much happier. And ironically, because you're more relaxed, that's when the skills really start to soar.
Mm-hmm. I also really like what you said about acknowledging that in other people, right?
Yeah.
Because that is where, especially now, the kind of connection that we're craving, it's like if we can give that to somebody, give that kind of acknowledgement and support them and lift them up,
Mm-hmm.
that's 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 like the golden nugget for that's the feel good golden nugget.
Right.
We can't necessarily give them a hug, or we don't see them in person. So I love that, John. I'm going to start using it myself. Thank you.
Well, remember, at the core, all of us want to have three things happen. We want to be seen,
Mm-hmm.
we want to be heard, and we want to be acknowledged. And whether you're a parent, a spouse, friend, and so that's why if this was only audio, it would be much more difficult to connect. So we need to be seen. We need to be heard. That the act of listening sounds like you're really scared, sad, frustrated, annoyed at the technology, whatever the issue is, without trying to fix it.
Right.
And if we can give ourselves that little break and just take a moment and go, what am I feeling? Before, how do I fix this? whether it's your computer that's not working, your car that broke down, whatever it is that's causing, what am I feeling? And then acknowledge that and go, you know what? This isn't how you planned your day. And you have a choice whether you take it personally or not. Right? Nobody else ever has computer problems. Really, is that the truth? Or they just don't tell you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to my world, computer, computer stuff, right? Yeah. So in your TED talk, you mentioned three fears.
Yes.
Okay. So the first fear, the fear of
Rejection.
action. Yes.
Bum, bum, bum.
Do you want to know what my biggest learning is from pivoting online? I said to myself, I have nothing to lose by just asking people. So I started reaching out to other musicians, asking them if they'd like to be part of this Sunday celebration of love. I reached out to all kinds of people that I wouldn't normally have reached out to, including you, because I was like, well, I got nothing to lose.
Right. And we know he's not traveling. So,
True.
yeah, this concept of rejection, um, and anyone who's been in sales knows that you've got to wrap your head around that one. And when I used to get a no, I would sometimes go, "Oh, maybe another salesperson could have gotten a yes. Or maybe they're right. Maybe that my product or client or brand or whatever it is isn't good." I went, whoa, what am I doing? I'm rejecting myself and my product. I'm agreeing with them. Maybe this is too expensive. Maybe this is whatever. Or maybe something else is better than what I'm. What? No, 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 no. So again, when we remember who we are, we don't have to respond from this taking the rejection personally. And for me, the secret to that is to never reject ourselves. So no matter whether somebody says yes or no to us, I'm Switzerland. I'm neutral, right? You want to go out with me? No. You want to hire me? No. Yes. I'm not rejecting myself. It's just not a fit for you. And sometimes no now doesn't mean no forever. So that seems to really help people is, the four agreements, don't take things personally. But a lot of salespeople have not read that. And nobody's ever taken that concept of, how about we don't take rejection personally, gang? Oh, well, that seems impossible. No, no, don't take anything personally, including rejection. Like, forgive everything. Don't take anything personally and don't reject yourself. And then we start beating ourselves up. Oh, if I was a better father, if I was a better mother, if I was a better sister, brother, daughter, better XYZ, whatever your job title is, uh, you know, you know, that doesn't help anybody.
No, most of all ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That we're just setting it up again and again to feel more rejected, and then of course that's going to show up in our lives as well. That's what we're going to attract. And then we talked a little bit about fear of failure because of
Yeah. It's, failure is just feedback. One of my
mm,
guests on my podcast, Jay Salmon, said, you just think of it like, you just keep going until you get a zombie idea so great it won't die, which I just love. And I was like, oh, is this an idea that's not going to die? It's going to keep, or is this, I guess it wasn't my zombie idea. It died. It didn't work. It's just feedback. Well, that didn't work. All those inspirational stories about how many times did it take, Einstein to, or whatever, to figure out electricity, and they don't, the Wright brothers flying. And it's just like these people and they're risking their life every time they get a failure. We're in online marketing. We don't get somebody to click on an ad. It's not the end of the world. So that headline didn't work. Oh, do I suddenly, have fear around that? No, I'm just going to test it. And so if we can stay neutral on that, and again, not get caught up in the self-esteem roller coaster. Oh, I'm a failure because this failed. Therefore, my identity is I'm a failure. Somebody rejected me. Therefore, I'm rejecting myself. That's where we have to really separate our identity from anything happening on the outside. Like when a student gets a C or a D, most parents I know would never say to their child, Brian, you're a D son. because you got a D in spelling or whatever, right? I just don't think any parent I know would ever say that to their child, and yet we do it to ourselves. Well, that's what I must be worth.
Hmm. And, um, holding on to that idea of somehow, if we have failed, it really does mean we're less than and not worth anything more, and then recreating it again and again as well. So,
It's because we've connected our identity to the outside results.
yeah.
If I'm not succeeding, then I'm not lovable. Who would love me? I can't love myself, so who in the world would love me unless I am a success? And therefore, I'm so attached to that success because it is my identity and it is my source of happiness. And the minute anything comes and disrupts it, then my whole world is. That's why I think some people jumped out of the buildings during the stock market crash in the 30s. I could never understand that as a child. And now at this stage in my life, I have an understanding of it. That
You
your
were
identity was
alive in
so.
the 30s, John?
Huh?
And you were alive in the 30s?
No, but I have an understanding of it from a standpoint of I could now have empathy. I have a sense of what those people who
Yes.
their whole identity was tied into their self-worth and their stock value, that they could never say, I'm going to ride this out until the stock market comes back, or, I'll find a job, or for some people, it's like, if I can't be wealthy, I don't want to be here. Well, that's not exactly a stoic philosophy of life. And that's why it's interesting when people say, test yourself a little bit, get out of your comfort zone, take a cold shower, let yourself know I can tolerate something discomfortable. Therefore, the minute something pops your little comfort zone bubble, you don't disintegrate.
You speak about that a lot, about getting out of your comfort zone.
I do, because it doesn't stay the same. The illusion is, all right, this is my comfort zone. This is my house, my neighborhood. This is the route I take to work. I don't even it's on autopilot. I don't have to think about it. But I don't want to learn a new way to go to work or learn anything new skills or new technology. I'm just going to stay in what I know. And it doesn't stay the same. That's the illusion. It shrinks. So you're either expanding it or it's shrinking. It doesn't stay the same. And what happens as your comfort zone gets smaller and smaller and smaller is then you no longer feel comfortable trying anything new because you've never pushed yourself in any situation. Well, let me try this bowling, playing the guitar, something. If I can't be the best at it, I'm not doing it. It's out of my comfort zone. Oh, what's happening there? My identity is I can't just be average or do something for fun. I have to be the best in it. Or I don't want to do it because my ego is so fragile that I get devastated when I make a mistake. And if somebody criticizes me, I really can't take it because I'm so attached to other people's opinion of me. And then I'm back on that roller coaster of not feeling good about myself. And so the illusion is, well, if I just don't ever try anything that I can't do well, I'll feel good about myself. And it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. And I feel, it's very sad that there are so many people that are in that place where they do just want to stay in their little bubble. They don't want to try anything new. They want everything to go back to the way it was. And yet they're living in terror. And I'm like, oh, that is just such a, for me, and I get that it's probably their perfect journey, but I think how sad, because you're missing out on the vitality of living to
Well,
truly experience.
you're in the fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
My only two choices here look like I'm going to run away, which is why so many people, jump out of buildings, or suicide rates go up during this time, or the holidays, or all those things. Or I'm going to fight and figure out a way to get back up faster than I can, and figure out a different way of solving something. Because when you remember who you are, you remember I'm part of something that's infinite in terms of skills and power and creativity and abundance. It's coming from so many different sources. that just because it's always come from this source doesn't mean that's the only source. And no job is the source of my good. I'm the source of my good because I'm connected to God and I'm an expression of God. And when you're in that mindset, then the concept of shrinking your comfort zone or wanting to stay in your comfort zone doesn't even make sense. So it's just a perception issue of if I don't feel part of all that, then I don't have anything to connect to.
Right.
And so I'm in survival mode, which is either, pull my head under the covers, or I might check out, or fight, get really angry all the time at the littlest thing and fly off the handle because you're afraid, or you're hurt, or you feel like this isn't fair. And when any of those things happen, and then you're off and running, I'm like, what happened to my meditative happy place?
Oh, that went to hell in the handbag. That's gone. Um, you took a risk. You really leaped out of your comfort zone in March
Yes.
and took a leap of faith. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, I had thought to myself, I don't necessarily need to stay in Los Angeles for what I call Act 3. And I was exploring San Diego, Santa Barbara, even Lisbon, Portugal. I thought, if I'm working from home, I don't have to go to an office anymore. As a speaker, I'm traveling, and where do I want to be? And do I need to stay here? And I've been, I was in LA 30 years, in California a total of 40. So I thought, what else is out there? Obviously, I'm going to miss my friends, but Austin's, not that far away from LA. And, I found a place that feels great in terms of this is a fresh start. I'm living closer to nature than I ever did. And, it's a place that celebrates creativity and eccentric and music and startup energy. And it's just, it's on a much smaller scale. There's a lot of people that have moved here who have that mindset. And so it's I thought, again, I wasn't making my decision based on this, but someone said, it's been voted the #1 place to live in the whole country for 2 years in a row. And they rank everything from weather to affordability to friendliness to, parks and all kinds of stuff that, is theoretically the quality of life. And certainly spirituality is a big part of the whole city and the vibe. And so for me, it feels like, oh, this is a great place to explore and meet like-minded people while still being able, of course, to keep in touch with the people that I care about. But yeah, it's it takes 3 days to drive. Luckily, my sister flew out and did it with me, so I didn't have to do it alone. And when I got here, the moving van hadn't arrived, and so you've been in hotels on the road, and then you get to your place, and you're sort of camping out, and you think, okay, who am I without all my stuff? And just go, still got my dog, that helps. That's something familiar, but it's a very different experience going, all right, and now when I watch a movie or see pictures of Los Angeles, I was watching the making of Frozen, which I found fascinating. And I see all the, footage of Burbank and everything. And I thought, I know all those places. And yet it's not like, oh, I wish I was there again. But it is sort of surreal. I don't know if you've experienced this, Helen, when you see something and you see life before the pandemic, and you see everybody in concerts and parties and traveling and sort of being very carefree in a way, that makes me a little nostalgic.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, very much so. Especially when music concerts and different connections that were happening, and it's like, oh, Oh, I do miss that.
Yeah, well, there's no Broadway and there's no Hollywood Bowl in LA and all those things. So you're like, okay, all these things we took for granted, like being able to sit in a restaurant and go where we wanted to go when we wanted to go. It's like it'll really take us back to ground zero on let's start this gratitude list all over again. There's a lot more things to add than there used to be. Um, we won't be struggling for things to put on that gratitude list, hopefully, when it comes back.
That's for sure. I think it's really interesting, John, that you said you moved to Austin, you were looking for a place for your third act,
Mhm.
and you moved to a place that is so vibrant and alive and innovative and creative. And what a great move. So you're
Yeah, you
feeling
just
that expansive energy.
right. And it's challenging to meet new people when people are afraid to interact with people. So again, that becomes like, all right, what if I'm supposed to just be quiet during this time and meet people on a slower pace and not be so frenetic about it and just really listen and give myself this time to meditate more um, and get back into a hobby, which I love photography. So I've really been experimenting with that more and boy, that I think one of the reasons I love photography so much. I remember in college, the photojournalist teacher said it's painting with light. I'm like, oh, that's great since I can't paint. And it's all about the composition of the picture. And when I'm taking a picture, I'm in the moment. I'm not worried about anything else, thinking about anything else. I'm in that moment going, I wonder if what I'm seeing in my eyes is going to come through on the phone. And should I move this up or down? And what's it? And oh, wow, I captured that moment when the boy swung out on the rope and did a backflip into the water. And look at that turtle swimming. And it's just a whole nother level of slowing down and being so present that you're like, oh, look, that cactus is blooming. That wasn't blooming the last time I walked by here. And so there's different birds and different plants that are here that are not in California. There's thunderstorms that aren't in California. So it's just like, oh, I'm that's weather. um, yeah, so it's a very it's just a fuller sense of being alive in a different way because you're so present because you're not running off to the airport or whatever.
Well, what a great example you are of um, not only shifting and changing your life at the beginning of the pandemic, but also totally surrendering and getting present with what is in the moment and not needing to force things to happen, not needing to force yourself to meet people and all of that. And it's like it sounds like you're um, really awakened to those beautiful moments
Mm.
of nature and life expressing itself. And I think for so many of us, and I would say myself included, that before this, there was a whole lot of running around going on and not a lot of noticing. And then,
Right.
oh yes, oh, I'll take my moments to notice. But oh no, I'm back on the treadmill. And now it's like, ah, there's breath, there's space, there's an opportunity to see. And I just even in my own walks, it's like the light and I don't have to be anywhere. So I just keep walking and noticing light and the trees and the gardens and
Yeah. And I started this online course back in September. And again, anytime we start any project, like, does this make sense? Who am I to do this? Will anybody buy this? All those self-negative, I'm like, just create it and figure it out later. And so by the time January rolled around, it was finally finished, edited. And then now people are like, hey, do you have an online course to supplement your virtual talks? And a lot of people are scrambling to try and create one. And it's like anything, you can't rush and push something through thinking that's going to be the quality you want. And so I'm like, oh, look what like a seed I planted, trusting again that it would come to fruition at the right time. And never, again, I couldn't have imagined the need for virtual courses more now than ever. People have the time and interest in taking more online courses than they ever have. And so that's been a different form of expression, but it's the messaging for me is the same. It's helping as many people get off that self-esteem roller coaster as possible and empowering people to become storytellers. Plato said, storytellers rule society, and it's just as true then as it was back then, and as it's true now. And Plato didn't have to compete with distractions from the internet and stories. So stories are even more important to me. That's my big mission now, is to help people become storytellers, because I think it empowers us all to tap into our creativity and our connection.
Can you tell people a little bit more about your course? And I'll certainly post the link on our page as well.
Sure. It's 10-minute segments of video of me, and there's like movie clips in there that take you on this journey. You're going to learn how to tell a story in a way that makes people want to lean in and remember you. Because the biggest problem when you push out a bunch of information, and let's face it, we're all selling ourselves all the time, is that people forget what you said. But if you tell them a story about the time I was a lifeguard and I saved a little girl from drowning, and that was my first experience of not panicking and staying calm, and how it's impacted my whole life, they go, oh. Or a story about when you met someone who told you something that changed your life or gave you a new perspective of life. So there's lots of, like, I talk about meeting Michael Phelps and asking him what the secret is to his success. And, so he tells me something that's revealed in the course that has been a game changer for me and all the people who take the course. And I'm going to leave that as a technique, which they call an open loop, that piques your curiosity enough to want to know what that is.
Oh, fantastic. And I would say, just from, the interactions I've had a little bit with you, and just how brilliant you are
Oh,
on getting people to really uncover and discover their pitch that comes from this authentic place and from the heart. And you're so skilled at it. And I remember you worked with me like literally for 2 minutes in LA after a service. And I went, that's brilliant. And I do encourage people to also listen to your podcasts. One of the most memorable podcasts for me is The Fireman.
Oh, Rob, yes.
Rob.
The fact that he's a human walking the planet is mind-boggling to me. He's like a superhuman.
He is. So, you oh, thank you. Yes, you have this incredible ability to have people tell their story on your podcasts, and they're engaging and they're wonderful. And,
and we all have a story. It's something that anyone can learn. I think that's the big takeaway from, if you're thinking of, oh, I don't know how to tell a story. I don't know how to have a good elevator pitch. I wish people would remember me more and refer me people. Then the course is really for you. And then I work with people in a private Facebook group, and they can practice what they've learned with me one-on-one in a group setting. And it's just great to watch the transformations of, even with parents with their child, instead of getting one-word answers from little Billy or Susie when they come home, and how was school, when they go back to school again. And believe me, they're going back to school. People are not going to tolerate having to homeschool their kids indefinitely for the next 10 years. But instead of saying, they get one-word answers, fine, okay, whatever. And they, Billy, tell me a story about the best part of your day. And then Billy can say the beginning, before school, at school, during, he gets to pick. And then you as the parent can share your favorite part, the story about your favorite part of the day. And now when people are having more meals as a family, I have loved helping families have that new, and even if you're with the person most of the time, tell me a story about the best part of your day. That's what we're talking about at dinner. Go around the table and have something ready. And then you get to help your child learn storytelling techniques. They're not clear. Wait, now what time was this? Where were you? I'll paint the picture a little bit so I know what's happening.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. I don't know if I could do that with my 26-year-old.
Oh, sure you can. You could do it with your friends. Why not your
I do
26-year-old?
it. We'll see. I'm going to try it on her tonight. I'll let you know how that goes. She's good at the one-word answers still.
Yeah, well, yeah. Tell
Yeah,
me a story about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, John, thank you so much for being on our Conscious Cafe. I'm so grateful to you.
Oh, well, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's been just absolutely delightful. And this will go on our YouTube channel as well, which is Welcome Home Toronto. I'll send you a copy so that
Great.
you'll have it. And thank you, everyone. I haven't checked. I know Ellen's been checking Facebook Live. And uh, thank you for those of you who are on Zoom as well. And Sean, it's lovely to see you. Thank you. And John, I just wish you all the best.
Oh,
I,
likewise.
yeah, I'm so grateful to you. And I trust we will be in touch at the perfect time as well. And
Exactly.
um, I'm putting Austin on my places to visit.
Indeed. Come
Mhm.
in. Thanks.
All right. Well, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you again. And much love. Bye for now. Mwah.